Hello, chefs. This is Chef's PSA. I'm your host, André Natera. On today's episode, my guests are Laura Sawicki and Mike Diaz. Mike's been on the show before. Laura's first time. They run Oseyo restaurant in Austin, Texas. Laura is a pastry chef. Mike is a savory chef. They're a couple, and we have a fun conversation talking about restaurants, pastries, and Laura gives some very specific advice for future pastry chefs. I hope you enjoy this episode. Stay tuned. So, Mike, it's good to have you back, man. You got a story you want? I'm just kidding. But I'm glad that finally we got both of you on because there's so much that I want to talk about today. But one of the things that's interesting, we were talking a little bit off camera, is like when you look at the dining landscape today. Specifically, here we are in Austin, Texas, and I feel like Austin's one of the hottest food cities. They got every type of restaurant that exists, especially with the Michelin Guide getting here. It's going to lift everyone up to start pushing a little bit harder. But what do you think is missing right now in Austin? Like if you had a magic wand and you said we're going to open up these types of restaurants, what do you think is missing in Austin right now? And then what do you think is missing like nationally?
Well, I think the landscape has changed a lot. I moved here 16 years ago, and I always had this idea of opening a Jewish deli, and it never felt like it was the right time. And at some point in the last few years, I really feel like the shift is there, and it's like wide open, and it's the time, you know. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do a lot of cool stuff, but I think we're moving in a direction where back towards that kind of side of comfort. I think we all need to feel supported and loved in lots of ways, and restaurants can bring that kind of nostalgia and that comfort. There's just such a realm of every kind of restaurant now, but I do think that there's this sort of niche that's missing in this kind of like way. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry.
No, I mean you're right. It's like there's a lot of things that are here now, but then there's a lot of room for other things that we just don't have here, like, you know, proper like New York style bagel shop or like the Jewish deli that we're talking about is something that we've been wanting to realize for a long time. And I think that there's a few attempts at doing it, but like nothing like what you would get in New York. And I think that there's a lot more room for just a different type of deli, you know, like more New York style.
What makes a good New York style Jewish deli?
I think at the core, it's the matzo ball soup that is like the backbone, and the good bagels, you know. But we've talked about doing like a smoked fish program, all the brisket, pastrami, all of that. But I think at the core, like for me, when we traveled and we went to Montreal, we went to Chicago, we've obviously gone back east, we went to LA, and always the thing that I gravitate to is wanting to try the matzo ball soup, because I do think that is the backbone. There isn't a spot to get a proper. Mike was actually asking when I started making, like when I was perfecting my matzo ball soup, and I said I think it actually started when I moved here, because back home when I was living in Brooklyn, New York, you could just go to a deli, you know? Yeah. It's a dime a dozen. Like everyone's got a great matzo ball soup, but here you just can't find it. So I think it was like born out of necessity. I was missing that. And yeah, I mean, it's a place, it's a really like convivial environment. You know, it's the deli that I grew up going to in Connecticut was, I think every single person there was a regular.
What was the name? Like
Gold's
Deli.
Gold's Delicatessen.
Yeah, Gold's. Westport.
Gold's Delicatessen. I mean, it's an institution, and everyone there is a regular. The people that work there are about 185 years old.
Everybody knows each other.
Everyone knows each other. Everyone's a regular. Saturday mornings we went and we sat at the deli in the back. It's like grab and go stuff up front, and then like proper service in the back. But the two servers have been there for probably 95 years. And my mom has her, you know, she loves one more than the other because she knows how to make a proper iced tea, and then the other one's better at serving the matzo ball soup. I don't know.
What do you mean a proper iced tea? Like
it's like the right amount of ice, and the right amount of lemon, and I mean, but it's so specific.
Are we using like Lipton?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
of course.
It's not. I mean, I don't want to say it's not great. It's just, they're not elevating it.
The nostalgia.
Right.
It is just, but they've got like jars of jelly beans in the back shelves. Like everything about it is just perfect.
The right pickles.
The pickles are phenomenal, but their matzo soup is just, out of this world. And it's, it's Jewish. Like, yeah, you can get a ham sandwich there. I know it's taboo,
It's
but
not
like
kosher, but
yeah, no, it's just delicious. Everything is perfect. Their tuna salad, their whitefish salad. And I get excited thinking about it. And I feel like, we talk about what we're going to go have for lunch after this. And I'm like, man, I really wish. And I wanted to call it Goldie's. I just thought it was an homage to Gold's Delicatessen. Every time we go back to visit my family, we got to hit up Gold's to go
I think there's a Goldie's here, though.
I know. That's what it's kind of
you can't.
It's not. That was the original name that I held in my heart. And I went ahead and bought all the.
Do you remember Coming to America with Eddie Murphy?
yes,
Like they have McDowell's.
yes,
Like they have McDonald's. Goldie's with the IE.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was.
Oh, if you want to get into naming stuff, one little thing you change, and then
Well, I bought like every URL because I was like, it's Goldie's. And then when we started actually realizing the concept, I realized that it's super saturated as a name. So we had some other, and it's sort of.
So this is like embryonic stages of wanting to do this. You're like early stages of thinking about it.
I've already done the business plan. I mean, I worked on that all summer. Like we have a couple years of traction, but it's just really taking the plunge.
So for my billions of listeners.
Billions,
right?
Billions.
I'm huge in the Philippines and huge in Dubai for some reason.
Oh, wow.
Like, not kidding.
We have friends in Dubai, so if you're listening.
I was running numbers on like the analytics on the show, and I saw that like #1 food podcast in the Philippines, #1 food podcast in Dubai. At one point, I was like #1 food podcast in Hong Kong. I have no idea who's listening, but
you
like,
can
shout out to my
plug that
Filipino in Dubai and Hong Kong
What's
fans.
the name of the actor? What's his name from Baywatch and Knight Rider that was huge in
Hasselhoff.
Germany?
You're the David Hasselhoff.
David Hasselhoff
of the Philippines.
Shout out to all my Filipino friends. No, but I used to work with a ton of Filipinos, so I think that's why. Realistically, I think that's why. I think they just listen to it and share it. So shout out to those guys.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But anyway, back to my point, to the billions of listeners that are out there. If, I mean, you're starting out, but I mean, are you like, you have investors behind you?
We started that. Yes, we started. I mean, we were getting some traction. We sort of decided to take a different turn from some partners that we were kind of working with. So it's got traction. It's got legs, but I need to push myself.
Very
I need
much
to push
in the
myself.
embryonic.
We need to push ourselves more. I need to push myself
for sure.
more. I met with a friend around the time that I was leaving my previous restaurant group, and she said, whatever you do, Lori, just don't drag your feet.
Yeah.
And I hear her voice telling me that, and I really, for whatever reason, I'm dragging my feet. I think probably just out of fear and apprehension, but I know in my heart this thing already exists, and I'm super confident that it's going to be wildly successful.
Yeah, we just need to raise some money and get the right backing, and then just go for it. But
we were looking at property. I mean, it's.
Here's something anecdotal, but it's relevant to you. So the last podcast that we did together with Gabe and Rico, we were talking about opening up a Mexican steakhouse.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I was going to bring that up too, that there needs to be more of that like Mexican steakhouse. I don't know exactly what that would be like. I don't know.
There needs to be more of it, but you don't know.
You brought that up last time, and I thought it was a great idea. But then I thought about like what I would go as a kid with my dad, like when he would take us out to dinner, and it was like El Tenampa in Juarez, and it was a big ass steakhouse, but it was very much like asados kind of, like it was just like a little hearth piggy with like a bunch of meat on top with like coals underneath to keep it warm. And that's what I thought of when you said Mexican steakhouse. But
so many people reached out.
Really?
I said that. Yeah, I got a lot. I mean, people that know me personally reached out and like, hey, that's a good idea. And I won't say who, but someone connected me with like some big billionaire.
Nice.
Recently, like, hey, you guys should talk. He lives in Austin.
Really?
And I was like, oh shit, I haven't. And so I sent a text. I was like, oh, maybe you want to talk. But anyway, so the reason I bring this up is because I don't know who people are listening. Like a lot of times, a lot of the consulting that I do on the side, it's usually people sending me their business plans and stuff like that. Like I've become really efficient at looking at business plans. But anyway, the reason I bring that up is because, if you want to send me your business plan for the Jewish Deli, I'd be happy to
look at it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm more of like a Frenchy kind of like steakhouse,
Yeah.
like
You have the vision. We toy with ideas all the time. We've got so many ideas
Yeah,
we're kicking
yeah.
around. Mike wants to do a tavern. I want to do an Argentinian steakhouse because parrillada because I'm from Argentina, and I think.
But there is like, I mean, we could talk about like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, like, you know,
nothing's happening unless there's fucking money.
Yeah,
but like,
But
if the money was no object, yes, of
it's-
course, I do like 10 different
But
ideas.
that's the most fun part, right? Building the deck. It's all the fantasy, right? So like I've already put together all the menus I need. I've got I've picked out everything, and then it's like actually getting to the nitty gritty and doing the financials and running the numbers. I mean, like, now this is like not the sexy stuff. This is the logistics, but it's the most important.
At the end of the day, it's like, what's the bottom line? What's that number?
Yeah.
That's all that matters. Like, all that's great, but how much are you gonna? How much are we making?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, how much are we
Well,
making?
that
when you
brings
paying
up-
me back?
Yeah.
That brings
Exactly.
up a good point. We were talking about it off before we hit record. It was, how hard it is to open up a restaurant, and I think last time we were talking about it, and it doesn't make money. It's really hard to make money and be successful at it.
Right.
So that's as a veteran of like almost like 30 years. No, I mean, you that's the hardest part, is like realizing, you can be a young listener, young aspiring chef, and just like me when I was a kid, and I want to just own my own restaurant, or I want to open up my own restaurant, and it's really shitty to find out that it's really hard to make money just owning one restaurant.
Yeah.
And
sometimes you might not make any money.
Yeah.
You might be losing money.
And that's the worst, right? Like you shut down, and you go out of business. But that is a deterring factor in trying to do another.
At the end of the day, we're all artists and romantics, right? So there's this fantasy of what the restaurant industry is that's really beautiful, and it's when you're young and spry and like nothing's aching yet in your body, all of that, it's that there's the romanticism, there's the sexiness of it, but then the reality sets in when you actually are the one operating the business.
So today's chef's I haven't posted it yet. I'm going to post it as soon as we're done. This is the one I wrote today. Is like, every chef believes in their food, but if no one buys it, the guests don't believe in it. Every chef thinks they have the right idea, but if no one buys it,
True.
who gives a shit?
It's literally
It really is.
business. That's the part that, like, as when you're younger and you're aspiring, you don't really fixate on that, and you think, I've worked at this one place, I've learned as much as I can learn from them. But have you stopped to actually look deeper into
learn
how
the
the business
business
is operating and how a business is successful?
Yeah.
Success is not just the food it puts on the plate. It's how
For sure.
lean, how lean and smart and how much money. I mean, at the end of the day,
if you learn that early on, like if you're young and you have all the tools nowadays to like find it, which we didn't. Like now everything's Google everything. And so learn the business first.
Yeah.
And then like the creativity will flow naturally, right? But it's really difficult.
I think culinary schools in general, and anyone that's teaching hospitality or culinary right now, I think they have to rethink how they're teaching, and I think a larger portion needs to be on the business side of it.
Yeah.
Like I almost think because of YouTube and how quickly people can learn how to cook, they have chef steps, they have YouTube, you could watch Instagram and learn a ton of new techniques.
Right.
Much quicker than we could back then, because we had to wait for the shiny cookbook and you couldn't watch it. You just had to say, I think I know how you cut that, right?
Yeah.
But now you could learn so quick online. I think they need to spend probably half of the curriculum, I would say, is the business side.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how, because I went to the CIA in 2003 and it felt like it was such a regimented, they didn't evolve. They didn't shift their programming. It was like, this is how we do it. And I'm sure over the course of every 10 years or something, I'm sure they've made edits to there, and they're always updating and adapting. But I would be curious how the curriculum has changed from 2003 to 2025.
Well, something like like an interesting thought experiment, and I don't know the answer. I just thought of it right now, so I didn't put too much thought into it. But if you look at the amount of restaurants that exist out there and how many of the owners went to culinary school versus how many of the owners went to business school, and if you saw the split, I would guess that it's probably 20% of the owners went to cooking school and about 80% went to business school or have some sort of business background.
Yeah.
And a lot of chefs, especially when you're young, when you're 17 years old and you're in high school and you think, okay, I want to open my own restaurant. What should I do? The first thing that pops in your mind is I should go to culinary school.
Yeah.
It's not I should go to business school.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good
I
point.
studied art history in college and undergrad, and so I was never a pragmatic person. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I'm expanding my mind. Mm-hmm. The thought of taking a business class in undergrad was like revolting to me. I'd be like, oh, why would I do that? And now, and I'm not a pragmatist, and I don't have regrets, but there is a tinge of like, I wish that, the 25 years, or God, I'm 45. It's wild to think. All these years later, there is a tinge of a moment where I'm like, I wish I could have listened to myself a little bit and been like, maybe just take one little class.
Yeah.
Just take one little class. And thankfully, 3 years of working and then owning my own businesses and being a partner in really successful restaurants, I did learn so much.
Yeah.
But had I been afforded that opportunity, had I afforded it to myself, had I recognized that was super important back then, who knows where I could have been. I was sort of late to the game to understand.
Not too late, but
no, I just mean, I think
it is
we find it, like I said, it was like revolt. The idea of it was revolting, and now I realize how absolutely essential and critical.
Yeah.
Having that wealth of knowledge.
A lot of chefs, especially younger chefs and cooks that I talk to, especially on the mentorship side, a lot of them have this view that, well, I'm selling out if I learn the business. It's all about the food, and it's all about the passion, and it's all about what's on the plate and the soul. And it's like, yeah, that's great. But it's not a playground, and the doors won't remain open for long if that's all you think about.
Right.
Yeah. I've seen that happen where chefs, like owners are dealing with a chef maybe who's like hyper creative.
Yeah.
And then, like unfortunately, like this is like totally like anecdotal for a friend of ours who like I feel like the chef was probably like responsible for not just like not like you got to hold somebody accountable for just their job, and like costing food is like
boring.
It's boring, but
you got to
it's
do
like
it.
you got to do it.
Yeah.
And so it's just like don't get caught up in like just the frou like
the theatrics and
that's fun, like that's all gravy, but like the thing that matters is having the doors stay open.
Yeah, someone said to me the other day, like being a chef is like spending all your time looking in the mirror, flexing your muscles is the fun part, but working out is the hard part. And that's the costing and the systems and the setting up and understanding the business. Like that's the daily lifting weights. Looking at yourself in the mirrors, the results of all that other stuff.
It's the flowers on the with the tweezers.
The vanity. Like we would talk about building vanity projects once we were getting the restaurants like up and running and they were successful, and then that's the part that really feeds our soul.
Yeah.
But it's not the thing that's going to keep the doors open. And
I'm like, I think as a veteran, I feel like I'm more interested in like the business side. Mm-hmm. It's just like for me naturally, I just like
you're
I wanted to be
man.
Like I really like working with Laura. She's hyper creative, and there's we have meetings where sometimes it's like I'm dealing with Laura and Lynn. We're talking ideas and it's like
I'm a mile away.
And I'm like, all right, how's that gonna be picked up? Like how's the salad guy gonna like do that on a Friday night? And I'm more of like focused on like systems and like logistics of business. So I feel more passionate about like seeing a business succeed versus like it's just like the next trendy restaurant. I do feel more interested in that part of businesses right now.
You guys are on the food circuit. I used to be on the food circuit also, like Food and Wine Festival, this festival, that festival, especially in Austin. It's like there was a festival once a month, every month, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things I used to do, like when I first started going to these food festivals, like I'm going to make the most badass shit because I viewed it as a competition.
Right.
Oh yeah,
like
I hate competition, but I always want to win.
Right.
And then you got to do 1,000 of them.
Right. And now, like back then, I was like, I'm going to do the most complicated soigné shit because I'm not only going to impress the guests, but I'm going to show all these other chefs that There's a
Yeah.
new sheriff in town. Now it's like, let's make sure we run out. I don't want to take anything back. Make sure it's
Totally.
easy.
When they say 1,000 pieces, you give them 600.
Right.
Oh yeah,
That's
to the
like
Food and
secret.
Wine Festival. Don't ask chefs to bring 1,200
Yeah,
pieces.
yeah. Well, all the chefs know, like 1,200, got it. So 500.
Well, yeah, that's the thing.
I always say I hate competition, but I want to win.
I
Right.
also thought
that's
about it like that.
It's my own, I guess, ego. I'm not an egomaniacal person, but I always want to be the best.
Yeah.
It's like strive for perfection, and it's never good enough.
You're
I'm tortured by my creativity.
That sounds like every chef.
Yeah, it's really brutal. I was interviewed it was a magazine, I guess it was online magazine, Dark Rye, years ago, and they did this really beautiful. They filmed for like 2 or 3 days at my house, and they were like, "We want to film your creative process." And I was like, "I don't think you want to film that. It's pretty tortured. I go through this whole psychological.
What is the
despair.
creative process?
I mean, there's like drawing, and there's lots of like drawing and painting and all that comes with it, but there's a lot of like imposter syndrome that plays a role. There's a lot of self-deprecation, and I go through this whole cycle. Mike and Lynn have both learned this the last 3 years. I go through this point where I'm like hitting the brink of like despair, and then I cross that threshold, and I start to see the light ahead, and I'm like, and it's cyclical. It's the same every single time. My sous chefs would learn that I would go through this process. So they'd sort of like casually roll their eyes like, she's going through this again. And then it's like they just wait with bated breath until I finally cross that threshold.
Well, I had forgotten about her process in a while, right? Like, and we were getting ready we were doing a dish for this dinner. We did a dinner with Gabe, and it was like, oh, I forgot about your process. I thought she was just like
sleepless
throwing
nights,
in the towel.
4
She was like
in the morning, texting myself,
this isn't
like, how I
gonna
could
work.
improve the dish.
It was like a technique she hadn't done before, so she didn't have enough time to figure it out. Like if she had like another day, she would have figured it out. And then she was just so beat up about it, and I was just like, stressed.
What was the dish?
I was nixtamalizing kabocha squash, but I was trying so many different kinds of squash and different.
Like to serve like they
as a
do in Mexico,
dessert.
like the candied.
So it was a gorgeous dish. It was.
I had a thought about that the other day. Actually, I was talking to someone about like nixtamalizing fruit and squash like that. I was like, it's underutilized.
So
she was doing that
25 years ago, whatever it was. I confit a whole pumpkin. So that was kind of this. Like in Argentina, we eat candied sweet potato. Or
Can I jump in?
Sure. Yeah.
Can you explain to people that are listening, like what is nixtamalized? What does the process look like to nixtamalize a squash or a fruit or something like that?
You could probably better speak to like the scientific reasoning, but the process is you soak, in this case, it was kabocha squash in a lime powder. What is it? Calcium hydroxide.
Yeah.
Solution, and through trial and error, some people will say it's a percentage of the weight of the squash. I did a weight of the water. Gabe actually bestowed that knowledge, 3% of the weight of the water.
To the cal.
Yeah. And so it was a series of I tried just a few hours. I tried 12 hours. I tried 24 hours. But then I would cook the squash for another 6 hours the next day in a piloncillo pasilla situation. But, then it's by day 3, you're finally seeing what the results are. And so that was the part where I was like, I don't have enough time to wait 3 days. I'm a very impatient pastry chef.
Yeah.
Like I don't have 3 days to find out that I don't love the way that something turned out. And that's really devastating. I don't usually put something in the oven, cross my fingers, and hope it works out. There's so much study and understanding that happens on the front end of it before I ever get to the place where I'm putting the thing.
For people that are listening, can you explain what happens after you calcify the food?
So in simplest terms, in terms of like this process with the squash, it changes the chemical structure of the fruit. So it set the structure quite firm, which then allowed the slow cooking in the poaching syrup to create like a custard center.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the nixtamalizing process,
so it just helps improve the structure of the vegetable and kind of like keeps the inside like nice and creamy versus like just kind of mushy.
And you see this a lot in Mexican food.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so if,
I think
for people that are listening, like you could go into like sometimes like Mexican grocery stores and you have like the nixtamalized calcified cooked in syrup, sweet potato or squash or fruit or something like that.
I don't know if I'm seeing, if you would see that like with.
You'd see it in markets in Mexico, but not.
Yeah. Like I think that like
Confiterias and stuff like that.
Confit, like candied, like squash, like in Mexico. I don't know if they do the nixtamalization on that, but I don't know.
I don't believe so because typically it's got so much sugar in it which preserves
it's like
it.
translucent. And
It's preserved.
It looks like the compressed.
Yeah.
It looks great.
And then the center is almost.
This one when you do the process, I think they do that more. I mean, it's more like for corn, you know, like you associate nixtamalization with corn most of the time, but I think chefs have figured out like recently, like in the last few years, I don't know how long, 10 years, they've been using it to like, you know, confit apples or squashes to maintain the structure and kind of like
aesthetically it was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it looked beautiful.
And so fruit being the perfect imperfect, I mean everything, you know, nothing is perfect. So each squash that I was trying was a completely, literally from one vegetable to the next, from one day to the next was a different process. So I tried butterkin, kabocha, acorn, and while it just wasn't yielding the results that I'd imagined in my brain, you know. But it was such a stunning dish, and when I finally got it to come together, it literally was like, oh, you know, like really, finally it just took so much work, and I was so tortured by all the lack of success along the way. But that's the joy of it, right? It's learning and teaching yourself, and I don't have, other than going to culinary school 25 years ago, I consider myself self-taught, you know, because I've always been the boss. I was thrown into a role at some restaurants in Brooklyn way back when, where I took on the role of a pastry chef. I was 25 years old, and I was running 2 restaurants, bakery by day and then 2 restaurants at night. So it was a tremendous learning curve. I just had to throw myself into it. And
which, by the way, I'll say this right now because I think it doesn't get talked about enough. I think that's almost more impressive. Like, a lot of people are like, well, what's your pedigree? It's like, well, that person doesn't have a pedigree, but look how successful they are. Like, to me, that's more impressive.
I'm built the restaurants. I've been the chef that other people have learned from, which is, I always wanted that. I wanted to be the kind of chef I never had professionally. Right. I had a pastry chef that berated me. She called me all sorts of horrendous names. And I was like, okay, this is not the person I'm going to grow up to be professionally. I'm going to create a really healthy, nurturing, learning, tender, compassionate environment for my staff to work in.
You do have an impressive set of old chefs that have worked for you that have gone on to do.
Around the globe,
it's really impressive.
One thing that's interesting, I was thinking about this earlier, is when we were opening. We rented an Airbnb. This is like 2017. Rented an Airbnb behind Laundrette.
I remember,
Yeah, and so like I had like 8 chefs crammed in there. We had to write like 800 dishes. Like, it was just crazy. We were all cooking it out of Airbnb behind Laundrette. We'd go there often. Throw shit in the dumpster.
Oh, I remember. I remember you guys took some meetings on the patio. I was like, we aren't even open.
That's funny.
It was like,
what were y'all working on?
So we were opening Garrison, Rules and Regs, Review, the pizza restaurant. Like, we were opening all of that.
It's so wild that we do that, because you also rented an Airbnb when you were doing the R&D for Oseyo. Like, why we think that's a great idea, because it doesn't translate to a professional kitchen, right? Like, you work on dishes at home, but they don't translate. You don't have the same equipment and all those things.
I was just happy to be allotted that time to fuck around.
I remember you guys had like a little workshop. It was like 8 little, we always see everyone in chef coats and like running around. It was like Harry Potter.
Yeah. It was wild. Like, we had to do a ton of recipes. We used to eat at, every day would go eat at La Barbecue. That was our lunch. Because they used to be in the Quickie Picky right there, right? So Michelin 1-star barbecue lunch every day.
Yeah, not too shabby. I wish I could eat that every day. That mac and cheese.
But anyway, the reason I bring that up is what is your R&D process look like? I know you just said you also rented an Airbnb, but like right now in Oseyo, what does the R&D process look like?
It's a lot of fun, actually, and we were you know.
I conceptualize everything that new that we were working on. I have really wild ideas, and I just journal and just write. And then it's a lot of just conversations between Lynn, Mike, and I trying to tell, our story. And then I vomit all sorts of ideas, and something, piques Mike's interest. And then it's just a fun process of cooking together. He takes my feedback incredibly well. I take his feedback incredibly well. It's just really fun.
I always don't want to ever do it. I'm always nah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so the creative process behind the chips I've learned with Mike is that he will always first seem disinterested or perhaps a little worrisome maybe, and then he starts to listen to my coaxing and excitement that I can get behind. I mean, I really could. I'm sure there's an expression. I'm terrible with idioms, but I could sell soap to someone. I don't know what that expression is. I mean,
Just stop. this is a family-friendly show.
Here's a friendly. Sell a ketchup popsicle to a man in white gloves.
Okay, there you go. So so through some careful coaxing and excitement, he finally gets on board.
The PG.
Sell a ketchup popsicle to a man in white gloves.
I could definitely, and I could probably make that ketchup. I know I can make that ketchup popsicle taste really delicious.
But what's fun about our process is that it goes back and forth until it's perfect, and we're happy with it, and it always tastes great and it tastes amazing.
Do you write it down first before you start working on it, or do you start working on stuff and then go back and?
I tend to hit notebooks first. I do a lot of.
I'm more
free
freeform. I like to just kind of research first the recipe, and then I'll just put my version or my recipe together, and I always write it down.
But I'm not going to say what you do. What I do.
No, you could say
it's different. No. I think your process has changed now that we're doing this together. So it's no longer about what Mike does in the kitchen, what I do. It's a collective situation now. So I try to make every day just a blast. Like I'm singing and dancing in whatever kitchen I'm in all day long because I'm my own best friend.
You play music in the kitchen?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Not during service. I can't.
I'm just kidding.
I get super distracted.
He never would let people play music in his
So
kitchen.
I had a chef in New York that only let us listen to
Sandstorm on repeat.
No, it was
my cook did that.
No, now I just forgot. It was Rush. He was anti-music in the kitchen, but unless it was Rush. So we could listen, it was super heady and nerdy.
Only Rush, come on.
So when I started working at Marlowe & Sons, we listened to a ton of Billy Joel, and that just it was like NPR at 4 o'clock in the morning, and then right into Billy Joel.
Billy Joel's great.
Yeah, so you're bopping Joel around. It's not getting in the way. If you're grooving with it, it's makes sense. But the prep cooks will listen to cumbias and all that in the morning.
They're funny in
once
our
service
kitchen.
starts, I don't want music.
See, I don't listen to music in the kitchen, but during COVID, we came back and the kitchens were empty. We're not really serving guests. We're just kind of prepping to get back to open.
Yeah.
So we could put music on. They're like, "Chef, you pick the music," and I'm like, "You guys want to listen?"
Pressure.
You want to listen to what I listen to? I'm like, "All right." So I put on the Raekwon, the chef,
Yes.
only built for Cuban leaks, and it starts out with him doing lines of coke. You guys ready for this? Welcome to the '90s,
Maybe
bitches.
maybe that's why you don't listen to music in the kitchen because it's inappropriate. I'm putting on
Our kitchen's funny because the one cook will have music in the back, and then on the line they'll be listening to a different they have their own little speaker.
Yeah.
So now
the prep cooks in line cooks both
you're listening to this mashup of cumbia and Billy Joel and
it's great.
Whatever.
Let me ask you, because I think it's an important piece to today's culinary world. What do you think chefs need to do to remain relevant? To still be at the front of everyone's mind and keep their restaurants busy? And do they have a responsibility to
do you remember that toy? It was probably from the 50s, and it's a monkey with cymbals and a drum
yeah.
one-man band, basically. I think
and it's in every horror movie now. Yeah.
You got to make a lot of noise. No. I joke about that, but it's a really competitive landscape right now. There is so much noise. There's so much noise. Instagram, TikTok, every other facet. So, I think authenticity is a tricky word, but I think being authentic to yourself and just being honest. And I think just having, I think presenting a different perspective that's, for me, I mean, fun. I want to make sure that there's joy and fun and that you connect with the food in a way that's really just, it's special. And I think it's more than just, that can be through service, that can be through the actual dishes, but I think, I don't know. I'm distracted. I'm super ADD right now.
I feel like we get, sometimes mixed up in like the things we need to do in order to stay relevant. Like you called it the circuit and doing that, like that whole thing where it's like you do the food and wine, you do hot luck, you do the live fire, you do all these like things around town, and it feels like you're like that monkey that's just like making noise, and when you stay true to what you're doing and just keep making good food and putting out good product and not like letting that suffer, because that can get forgotten. Like you have a dish on the menu and it's been there since day one, and then you're just like, oh, I never worry about that dish. No, worry about that dish because it's got to be as good as it was on day one, right? And so, like, as long as you're doing that, I think that's a good way to stay relevant. But yeah, it's hard now. You have to like do way more stuff. Like you got to do like behind the scenes video at on Instagram, or
you got to be corny sometimes.
Yeah, you got to be corny and then you follow trends and and you do all of that. But then you're competing with like the 4 new restaurants that opened this month, or like people just like moving into town that just don't know anything.
It's really tricky. I mean, it's 4 new restaurants used to have there was like a 6-month maybe 6 months. It feels like Laundrette was like hot for like 2.5 years after we first opened, but now that window is like 3 weeks,
right? Because
we're on a constant cycle of restaurants opening, which is incredible for the city and incredible for the guests, but also such a saturation that it becomes really noisy. It's hard to say. I think the most important part, I guess, when I say authenticity is like remembering to believe in yourself. And that's how the relevance will come to play, because you can get really distracted by all that noise, and you get in your head and start to feel, I'm older, I'm not in the spotlight anymore. I sort of I talk myself off a ledge constantly about being like, am I even relevant anymore? Do people remember me?
Billions of listeners.
Billions. Now I've got billions.
You're
going
to be huge in Hong Kong.
Philippines, so. Number 1 in the Philippines.
I hope so. Yes. Yeah, I've always wanted to be.
I don't know. It's
pop
like
star
it feels as though like restaurants, like it's like a huge thing to like make it to 5 years now.
Yeah.
And like places like we're going on our 6th year. I think like Nixa just had their 5th year, and there's you still have to kind of put yourself out there and still try harder to get those people that like weren't here 5 years ago.
Right, and it's hard to get, because sometimes you get pigeonholed. And so as a chef, you evolve. Like the food that you were doing 5 years ago is not necessarily the food that you want to do today, but people don't want you to change either.
Yeah.
Right, they still want to come in for this.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, my ideas have evolved, and I know like maybe that was good 5 years ago. Today it's different. Let me introduce you to this. No, don't introduce me to anything new.
Yeah.
I want to keep eating that.
Yeah. It's the the Jean Favreau chocolate. Was it flourless chocolate cake from the movie Chef?
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm shocked at how good that flourless.
That was good.
We went to Vegas over the summer, and Mike went down to the Chef food truck in our hotel and brought a little
Chef food truck. Is that like from the movie Chef?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Roy Choi has a restaurant at the hotel we stayed at, and it's called Best Friend.
It's phenomenal.
It was really good. It's like
super
Korean
fun.
Mexican.
Okay.
So, but next to that, there was the chef truck from the movie. And they were selling Cubanos.
Okay.
And
medianoches and flourless.
So I was like, I got the flourless chocolate cake. Like, yeah, why not? So I bring it up to the room and leave it there for a little bit, and
30 minutes later, that shit was still
the flourless chocolate cake is like one of the goats of desserts. You don't like. It's rare that I have a pastry chef on. Very rare. So
I know what's up with that.
there's not a lot of them, right? That's problem number one. Is I think like people come to me and be like, "Hey, I want to become a pastry chef." I'll tell you what I tell people is like, just keep this in mind. Like, not every restaurant that has a chef also has a pastry chef. So keep that in mind, that there's going to be fewer opportunities for you. So that's one of the reasons why I tell people, like, really think this through, because you don't have as much opportunity.
Yeah.
But because I don't have, I wanted to ask you about desserts specifically, but now maybe we talk about advice for pastry chefs that are just getting in the game. So remind me to come back to like the goats of desserts. But like if someone was coming into the game right now and they want to be, and you're one of the legendary pastry chefs, what advice would you give to someone that is like, okay, I'm 18 years old, I want to go to culinary school, and I want to be a pastry chef. How do I make it in the world today?
How much time do I have? I don't know. I mean, it's so hard. I think I would never want to deter anyone from it, but you have to give the sound sage advice. Like, it's not an easy game to get into. But I think just really trusting yourself, and I guess I'll circle back to like being honest and authentic with yourself. Like, it's a really, really difficult industry to break into and to be really successful at. It's not for the faint of heart. So I don't know. I wish I had some like sound sage advice, but take risks. Don't be afraid to have doors closed before you, so more doors can open. Like, you just really have to be passionate about it, commit to it, give it your all.
Let me pretend I'm the 18-year-old and I'm asking you questions. So I want very specific answers. Okay, I'm 18, new culinary student. What school should I go to?
The CIA was incredible for pastry. I mean, it's an incredible school to everyone who has been and is continuing to think about going there. I had an 18-year-old cook at Laundrette that wanted to go for Savory. So I advised her to continue to cook, whether it was with us or in other restaurants around town, before she made that commitment. To truly decide. I think from the Savory end of things, you can get a really incredible education just working with dedicated chefs that are willing to teach.
Yeah.
For pastry, I think it's very useful and instrumental to have that wealth of knowledge, because you get exposed to so many things that you wouldn't have the opportunity to be exposed to. Like, I was pulling like sugar roses, and making 3-tiered wedding cakes. Like, those are things I never want to do again, but I was super thrilled to have the opportunity.
So does the CIA have, and I don't know this, but like, who has the most comprehensive pastry program that when you've worked with a lot of pastry students,
CIA for sure.
like they're coming out with the most well-rounded skill set usually?
Yes, for sure.
Well, isn't there the program 2 years?
Yeah, it's a 2-year associate's program. You could do bachelor's as well. It's the way that it's designed. It's basically in thirds. So you do your first. You went to the CIA, did you?
No. Well, I've been to the CIA, but not for like my main education.
So it's like the first semester, if you will, which is a lot of the academics. And then you start getting your hands dirty, and then your externship is in the middle, and then you go back for the remaining.
And okay, so let's say they graduate from CIA, and it's like, okay, where do I go? Do I go the hotel route? Do I go the country club route? Do I go independent restaurants?
I do have to say the Culinary Institute definitely, at least 25 years ago when I was there, was geared more towards the hotel route.
For pastry?
For pastry, yeah. For sure.
It's because they have a lot more opportunities usually, yeah.
And so I knew that I was living in Brooklyn, and I went up to school for that hiatus and then went back to Brooklyn. I knew that I was going back to New York. I didn't come out of that program thinking I was feeling super well connected. The chefs didn't have that same connection with chefs in New York restaurants and fine dining restaurants that they have with hotel organizations and larger corporate groups. That's just the nature of it. I'm sure that's since changed, but there's other more specialized, French culinary. Are they still the French culinary, or they changed their name?
I don't know if that's open anymore.
I think they changed their name to I'm not sure. But there's also ICE, International Culinary Education, in Manhattan. So there's 2 great schools in Manhattan. In hindsight, I absolutely loved the program, and it was invaluable wealth of knowledge. But from a pragmatist perspective, sure, I probably could have stayed in the city and continued to work full time and gone to school and had an incredible education. So you don't have to go to the CIA. There's incredible schools, and I think I'm not
But
sure.
if you didn't want to go the CIA route, you would tell them maybe get into a place where there's a very successful pastry chef that you could learn under with a
Yes.
large pastry department or a small pastry.
Yeah, and I
department.
think, the only hotel I ever worked at was Canyon Ranch, and it's a spa, so it was different. Learned a lot, but in terms of pastry, there were some limitations because of the cuisine. But I think that's a great exposure for young cooks because it does give you structure. There is opportunity to do much like a culinary school. You have access to so much more than you do. Just
bigger machines,
more toys to play with.
Right.
Larger kitchens.
I did my internship.
Larger, crew of teammates to learn from as well, which I think is super important.
As opposed to a small restaurant where it's just like you.
Yeah.
Right.
We you mentioned going the country club route. I did my internship at a country club in Florida, and for pastry, like the pastry department was like insane. Like it had their own their own floor. It was like they had a French pastry chef. So I feel like for pastry, it's very much like repetition and like you get a lot more reps and practice going that route. I thought it was like kind of awesome that I did my internship because I got to see that and I was like, hell no, I don't want to do that. I want to be in restaurants.
Right. I mean,
and it was like good, you know.
Yeah.
It was like it was the opposite effect.
Yeah, we had
I didn't get stuck there.
We had a bakery. We had bread programs. We had a bakery. We had 2 restaurants. Like it was great for me to have that experience. I'm super glad. It was a great learning experience.
What about like a high-end grocery store now? Because like some high-end grocery stores, like they make great bread, they make great pastries, make cakes. I mean, is that like would you tell an 18-year-old CIA culinary graduate that wants to be a pastry chef, like, hey, why don't you go work in Whole Foods and work in their bread department for a while?
We actually had one of my bread chefs. 2 of them actually were alums from Whole Foods, like way back when.
Yeah.
This was 2003, so they spoke so highly of Whole Foods in general, but just of that learning the bread program. Like I think that's an incredible route to take. I think when I was in culinary school, I think we were all really wanting to get into like food writing and styling because that was sort of on the precipice of what was happening, right? The Food Network was like blowing up back then.
Yeah.
I think it was important for me to have exposure and to understand that there was much more than just going the traditional restaurant route or hotel route. That there's opportunities in this industry to do so much more. And I think, high-end grocery stores, food styling, all of that, there's so many opportunities to be a pastry chef in a non-traditional way.
Okay, last question. I'm a young pastry chef, and I'm just thinking about money. Where can I go to get paid the most? Like, what kind of pastry chef do I need to become if I want to make the most amount of money?
I'm going to ask you that question. I have no idea. I'm still not making.
I mean, I know what I would say. I'm just curious if you agree. I would say like work your way up. The biggest casinos in Vegas or Macau or something like that. Like they pay their pastry chefs tons, but there's a lot of theatrics.
I did a couple events in Vegas, and cooking in Vegas hotel kitchens was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
That was mind-blowing. I mean, they had any gadget you want, it's there. They have access to all of the toys. So I think, if you're going to go that route and you want, it's a hustle, it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
And then you're living
That's
in a place
great
like
route,
Vegas.
like to make money. Like that and the theatrics to do it. I think that would be
Take
fun.
those risks when you're young. I mean, it's a lot. It's
totally.
It's easy to reinvent yourself and to move to a new city and make new community for yourself when you're young. It gets a lot more challenging as you get older. It's
I would
still
have worked on a yacht.
We are obsessed with Below Deck. So
What's below deck?
what is Below Deck?
Yeah, what is that?
It's like it's a reality show about the people that work on super yachts below deck. So it's the deckies, the deckhands, and the interior, and the chef.
and the captain.
And captain. It is wild. But I mean, of course, because it's Bravo or whatever. I don't know if I should say that channel, but you like. He loves it. And there's a sailing yacht version. There's the Med. They're in the Caribbean. I mean, it's wild and shenanigans, and it's tawdry and it's skeezy and disgusting. But when you actually like take all that trash, when you take all the trash out of it, and you actually just think of like the structure of the show, they are, there's 3 or 4 deckhands and there's 3 or 4 interior, and they're in hospitality. They're dealing with like different client-based energies every 3 days.
The only reason I like it is because they have to work.
Yeah.
Really fucking hard.
They can't be bullshitting. Like it's like it's not a like
they work 20 hours a day.
Yeah.
Literally,
like
they sleep
your
for 4 and then got
average
cameras
reality
in their
show.
face the whole time.
Anyway,
I
But
recommend it.
I was just saying, like, before Laura
I went up.
told us
Sorry
about how
for all those
much she
billions.
loves the show.
It's just so good.
Like taking those risks when you're younger, like versus thinking that you gotta like grind. I did the opposite. I grunted it out in kitchens for 20 years, keeping my head down before I was like, ugh, like this kind of sucks, like reserve your energy when you're young. I don't know. It feels like weird for me to say that now because like my younger self is just like, no bullshit. I want to just do whatever I want. And
Yeah, but now your back hurts and your
right,
foot
that's what I
hurts
mean.
and-
Like, if I would have told myself, like, hey, you know what, chill out, dude. Like, you're gonna be
Save some money.
You're gonna be good. Yeah, like, so buy a property in Austin.
It's actually
10
kind of
years
weird.
before you did.
I never thought that I would like say some of the things that I'm saying, but now that I'm actually in this point in my life and I hear myself speak like an older human being, and I'm like, wow, it's actually happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, you take those risks when you're young, because it's not as easy to
I
uproot
don't know.
your
I
life.
feel pretty good. I'm 45. You said you're 45, and yeah, we're
I feel
sore and
Yeah.
that, but like, I still have a lot of fun doing.
I
what
could
we
cook
do.
circles around the 25-year-olds, so
Yeah.
So could I for about 10 minutes.
yeah.
Like 10 minutes, I'm fucking good. After that, I'm like, ugh.
After that, I'm like, help me!
I dropped the
Help
spoon.
me!
Someone asked me the other day, one of my friends, he's like, one of my friends, we talk shit to each other all the time.
as close friends
As
do.
close friends
Yeah.
do. And he's like, you've been fucking retired for 3 years. You can't even cook anymore. I said, but I can still fucking tell people how to cook
Yeah.
really well.
That's what a chef is.
Like, I can still tell you you're fucking doing it wrong.
Yeah.
better than all of them.
Absolutely.
So you're saying you're officially retired?
Yeah.
3 years? 3 years? ago?
3 years,
Wow.
yeah, 3 years. It's been 3 years that I haven't worked. I mean, I do a lot of consulting. I'll go in and write menus and teach people, but like being a chef,
Yeah.
it's been 3 years.
Do we get to interview you in this moment? What did that feel like for you to finally make that shift? Because I've sort of, sorry, I'm going to turn this question onto myself. I've reached that crossroads many times where I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
What else would I possibly do though?
Yeah.
I'm a chef. I've been a chef for my whole professional
For
life.
me, it was trying to figure out how to monetize my knowledge, right? Because you still got bills to pay and lifestyle to support. So I had to figure out, like, okay, everything that I know as a chef, how can I take that knowledge and monetize it a different way through books, podcasts, endorsement deals, consulting, stuff like that. So that was a challenge, figuring that out. But the other challenge is I didn't realize how lonely it would be not being a chef, because I'm naturally introverted. Like I like stay home. I'm like quiet. I'm shy. I avoid people. I'm like, oh, people. But I thought that's what I wanted, because I was always around people, hundreds of employees. The last job I had like 200 employees, right? And always dealing with problems. Like my mind was just always on. And the second that it turned off, and when I say turned off, I mean like there's no one to interact with, and it's just me and my computer. I'm like, fuck, this is.
Yeah.
There's no one to talk to. There's no one to brainstorm with. There's no one to bullshit with. There's no one to let me just go crack a joke with my sous chef. That didn't exist. And then like when I reach out to friends, like, hey, what are you doing? I'm like, we're fucking working.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm like, nothing. Like, you want to hang out? They're like, no. I'm at work. That was probably like,
Yeah, that makes a lot of
that's
sense.
the hardest part, is like going from constantly being around people
Noise.
to constantly just working by yourself.
Yeah.
And having to, it's one thing when you're in a kitchen and you're self-motivated, but there's still people around you. It's another thing to have to be self-motivated when no one's around you.
Dude,
Yeah.
you're ready for your own cooking show.
Yeah?
I think so.
Man, maybe.
You'd be great.
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know what you would cook.
You just set an induction burner here and do
I have an idea. You know what I would do if
Sitting down, chef.
magic wand? I could do whatever I want. I have two ideas, but one I enjoy more. So first idea would be like go into my recipe books. I started cooking in 1995. So get all my recipe books from 1995 to when I retired and just make those dishes exactly like we did then.
would be
So like parsley on the rim,
Yes.
fucking like zigzag balsamic, like just all the cheesy shit to the more modern stuff.
Bell pepper
like,
confetti.
and like played it for everyone to say like, I know this looks bad, but this was great in 2000. I would do that. The other idea I would have, and people could steal this idea, just give me credit. I would love for someone to say, here's a restaurant, make the menu and cook every dish. Like randomly, like, okay, open a taqueria, go. And I'd have to make every dish. Okay, open an Italian restaurant, go. And I want to see if I could, like, how good can I make food with random concepts that people throw at me? Like, could it be, for TV, could it be as good as the best of the best?
Yeah. Well,
I'm really seeing this evolution of your recipes, but in the form
I'm thinking
of a
frosted
book. I think that's going to make a
tips.
beautiful cookbook.
Frosted tips.
What about your hair? You're going to...
No, you.
Yeah.
Turn you into the next Guy Fieri.
I didn't wear frosted. I used to wear the big ass FUBU.
Yeah.
Peli Pel.
Yeah.
I was definitely rocking that. I had my lowrider cholo phase.
Nice.
I was doing all that. It's funny because the eras that we grew up in, we're all kind of from the same era. It's like, man, it was so good when there was no cell phones.
Oh yeah.
It was so good when there was no social media, and like if you wanted privacy, you just went to the payphone, so no one listened to the other phone, right?
You know what we were talking about the other day?
We're talking about that.
About Party Line. Did you ever?
Oh yes.
For those of you who didn't grow up with a landline, Party Line was you could call somebody and then put them on hold by hanging up once, dialing another number, and then you click on the hang up again, and it
you could
combines
sabotage your friends.
So it's a three-way call, and then you would like.
That's how you would catch the cheaters.
I
told you it was cheating on you.
Yeah. It was like those little things that we grew up with that I love. And like Laura grew up in Connecticut and I grew up in El Paso. And like around the same time, so we had these like shared moments, even though we're like in the opposite side, of the country.
We were both watching cartoons at 6:00 in the morning on a Saturday.
Fucking cartoons back then were the best.
Yeah, same cartoons.
And like, so we have these like, oh, remember that? Oh, look at that. Oh, that toy. Oh, yeah. So it's like, I love that about like pre-cell phone, like
having to talk to people.
Internet, having to talk to people. We were just talking about that a friend of ours who was like on this dating app and like had an amazing like 48 hours, and then all of a sudden it was like the guy like ghosted me, and I was just like talking about like how weird it is for me to even think about that, because we started dating before there was any dating apps.
Right.
So like that one thing is just like, so it's like I'm like trying to like theorize like, well, maybe because the apps are making guys too much of like,
it's too easy.
Yeah, and then like me
back in our day, we had
when I first moved to Austin, like thinking like I'm gonna like crush it in the dating game, and as a young 25-year-old, and like getting rejected and like to your face,
right?
Like, not like without not knowing anything
not
about
swiping in the other
direction. Not like, oh, she's 29 and likes this, like there's like information that you have about a person before they reject you, and then like me remembering going up to like a random person and like trying to like
for lack of a better word, we had to raw dog it. You had to go to a bar and you had to talk to somebody in person. And
you had to get the courage to like walk over there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now it's like
we met through a friend, and I was actually you were dating somebody, but
we knew like I knew you as a chef when you moved into town. I was like, man, fucking Renee and Laura are badass, like New York chefs. Like back then there was no building next to La Condesa. There was like a parking lot.
Right.
You remember that?
Yeah.
I
remember using their dumpster.
Yeah. We did have a beautiful gigantic dumpster.
But then like, times change.
Oh man, it was that was the W is just a hole in the ground, and then they started building it, and it was scaffolding, and we watched that whole thing go up. But it was a totally different, even to say 16 years ago when I moved here was a totally different city, totally different culinary landscape for sure.
Yeah,
I mean there was just one of everything,
So normally when we wrap up the show, I ask just a couple of questions to the guests. So one of the questions is like if there was a Mount Rushmore of chefs. But because I didn't get to this question earlier, if there was a Mount Rushmore of desserts, like 4 desserts that you think are the most important desserts, pressure.
Pressure is on.
Pressure.
Dish.
What are the 4 most important desserts to you?
Well, this could be a round table. I don't know if it's I don't know. Let's see.
Like you're talking classic.
So the goats, we're talking
like you said, flourless chocolate. Like, what are the 4 goats that will last, that were popular then and will be popular moving forward?
I mean, you gotta throw in like a creme brulee.
Yeah, I mean any custard. So
Any
flan,
custard,
creme
flan.
brulee for sure.
Custard. I like custard.
I prefer flan over creme brulee, but I know that's kind of divisive and people will have their opinions on it. But I like
flan.
I think it's just old school. I mean, I think a flourless chocolate
classic
cake,
flan is perfect, right? Chocolate flour.
a perfect
cake.
scoop of ice cream.
No.
Yes,
Okay.
No.
What
But like
flavor?
desserts.
So here's the thing. My family, being from Argentina, dulce de leche ice cream is our goat. My sister and my mom are obsessed with it. My dad, on the other hand, likes chocolate and vanilla. He's old school. He's chocolate or vanilla. I sort of find myself leaning in that chocolate or vanilla. So when I was still back at Laundrette, I made what I think is truly the most perfect ice cream I've ever made in my life. And it was marbled chocolate and vanilla swirl with a ribbon of fudge, because it was also inspired by my dad, but also
so good.
because as a kid, my favorite Baskin Robbins ice cream was world-class chocolate. And it was white, dark, and milk chocolate all marbled together. It's like, we tried it together like back in El Paso a couple years ago. It was like chewy, and there's just, from the scoop going in. The scoop going in, there was little bits of ice that would form in it. So it was it was so good. Anyway, so at Laundrette, I did my homage to that was chocolate and vanilla. So I think I'm right down, I don't think I could
So we have
choose.
flan, we have ice cream, we have flourless chocolate, and then what's the 4th?
Like probably I'd have to go in like a croissant route.
Yeah.
I'd have to think of
like that.
like a croissant, or maybe we throw a 5th one in, a perfect donut.
Yeah, perfect. Fuck yeah.
I mean, a cake, a perfect
I
old-fashioned
I
cake
want to say
donut.
like New York style cheesecake with raspberry coulis.
Yes.
go wrong.
Okay.
And a
Let's take the
mint
donut out. Yes. So we're just naming desserts from the 80s that were really popular.
Basically, yeah. Dude, I love haute cuisine. Like, it's like my favorite. My favorite chef's Marco Pierre White. It's like-
We've since restarted watching the old school OG Iron Chef, and it is a blast.
And it's
Aesthetically,
wild. The food is strange.
Yeah,
You're like,
it's
oh,
strange.
what is this?
I
What
know,
is this?
It's wild. We've enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a real like visual throwback.
We might have to audit the one episode we watched was the Japanese chef that trained in Mexico. And so he
could do a whole
he
episode
made
on that.
tortillas and shit.
Oh, really?
But he was up against the Italian chef, and the Italian chef
Made tortillas.
erroneously was fucking
Talking
shit about like how Italian peppers are better than Mexican peppers. And I was like, what the fuck? Like,
They were throwing so much shade towards Mexico. We were like, this is not
history lesson, folks.
in a culinary arena.
Chilies were brought to Italy from Mexico.
Yeah. Well, chef. Last question. If you had a chef's PSA out there, what would you tell the young cooks?
I like to say like own your shit.
Own your shit.
Own your shit. Like if you make a mistake, fess up to it, learn from it, move on, and just don't do it again. Just
I love that.
Own your shit.
That is perfect, succinct, short. Own your shit.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you?
At Sawicki at Sawicki on Instagram and
At Oseyo,
At
touch your
Oseyo.
table.
if you want to see me, I'll touch your table at Oseyo. Yes, there you go.
At Cantinflado. Come see me at Oseyo.
And it's stand up.
And it's
Hopefully
And doing stand-up,
Yeah,
right?
I might have another show coming up.
We'll see you on Kill Tony soon enough.
I gotta
I
work
don't
my
know,
way
I've
up
never
to
seen
that.
it, but-
Yeah. Anyway,
No, they're brutal.
No, well, let's do some open mic. We'll do an open mic circuit for sure.
Got to do that. Yeah. All right. Hopefully at a comedy club near you.
thank you guys. It was great. It was great talking.
Thanks, Andre.
Super fun. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, dude.
I hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to support Chef's PSA, here are some things that you can do. You can go to chefspsa.com where you get all the books that I've published, including some free ebooks. You could go to the shop.chefspsa.com and get yourself some hoodies, some hats, some t-shirts, and support the show. If you want early access to episodes, you could become a premium subscriber on Spotify and Substack and get the episode before anyone else. Get Chef Phrase. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or anywhere else, make sure you leave 5 stars, nothing less than 5 stars. It's a 5-star podcast. We'll see you next week.
Hit the porno meter.
No Andre in the kitchen, mixing, dropping chef knowledge, no fiction, stirring up the beats, heating up the session. Listen close, class is in session.